Okay, so on top of the 5-step process, then we can also find a confidence interval. So this is what the confidence interval look like. Again, the formula looks really, really scary. I will take the time to write the whole one out for this one, but again, most people just put a plus minus sign instead. So we want a 95% confidence interval, and it is the same as what we did up above. Okay, so this is alpha equals 0.05. That's the same thing for the 95% confidence interval. So what we do is 8842 minus 8061 minus 1.96 times the square root of 562 squared over 50 plus 483 squared over 50. So you can notice this is the exact same thing as the denominator we have right here, okay? And this part's the numerator. A lot of people will actually subtract this, so it's one less thing you have to type in to this whole thing, but it's up to you. All right, so that's less than mu1 minus mu2, which is less than that whole thing. Probably going to run out of room. So you can see that's why we usually put the plus minus sign instead. Okay, again, I'd like you to type this part especially all in at once because there's lots of rounding we would have to do. So if you want to do this part separately and then just type that difference minus blah, blah, blah and plus, obviously that's totally fine. All right, when you type it in, you should get 576 is less than mu1 minus mu2, which is less than 986. So that means you can be 95% confident that the difference of the means is between, this one, since it's money, you can just leave it 576 and 986. Okay, so again, you're not doing the mean. Obviously, the mean of the hotel room is not $5.76 or $9.86. What that's saying is if you could get the price of every single hotel room in New Orleans and every single hotel room in Phoenix, find the mean of all of those and subtract them. That number should be between those two numbers. Okay, the point of this is so that you don't have to do the 5-step problem. So in your homework, one of them will be just a confidence interval, and you should be able to know whether what the claim is true or false. All right, and so here's how it works. This is saying if you subtract the two, you should get a number between $5.76 and $9.86. This shows there is a difference. Okay, so since 0 is not in the interval, it means there is a difference. In the prices of a hotel room. All right, so this clarifies, or it kind of says, yes, we did the right thing up above here because it says they are different. Okay, so since 0 is not in here, that means there is a difference. If 0 is in the interval, so one side is negative and one side is positive, that means at some point in time when you subtract, you're going to get 0. If you subtract two things and get 0, that means they are the same. So even though there's an interval and it's not always 0, the fact that 0 would be in there means they are the same, or that you just can't say they are not the same. Okay, so since 0 is not in our interval, that means these prices are different. All right, here's our next one. The average length of short hospital stays for men is slightly longer than that for women, 5.2 days versus 4.5 days. Random sample, blah, blah, blah. So here's all our information. Notice, this number and this number do not match these two. They gave us those saying this is what we think right now, but we will never use those. Most people think we need to use those in our z-score, but we do not. All right, so if they give you a population mean, you do not use them at all. I think I might have went out of order, but hopefully it'll be okay. All right, so step 1, h sub 0, mu1 is equal to mu2, h sub 1. Now here's your choice. This is where you have to decide which one you want to call 1 and which one you want to call 2. I always just keep them in the order that they are in the table. Okay, what you have to be careful of is sometimes the wording doesn't match up here or down here, so you just have to be careful. It says, is there sufficient evidence to conclude that the average hospital stay for men is longer than that for women? So that means mu1, since I'm calling that mu1, is greater than mu2. We could do this same problem and call women 1 and men 2. We would just have this flipped around. Okay, so really it doesn't matter as long as whatever order you have here is the same order that you do your z-score in. So that's where you have to keep the order the same. All right, so step 2, this is a greater than. So 0.01, we don't split it because it's one-tailed test. So again, you look in the big part of your chart. For 0.01, you're going to get negative 2.33. So that means this one is positive 2.33. Step 3 is the z-score. Z equals 5.5 minus 4.2. If I would flip those two around, I would get a negative z-score, which doesn't make sense. So that's why the greater than sign has to match the right-tailed test, which means your z-score better be negative. Again, that technically minus 0, but we don't need to put that in there. Over the square root of 1.2 squared over 32 plus 1.5 squared over 30. So again, sample sizes don't have to be the same like they were in that first one. So plug this all in at once, or again, some people like to subtract it first and then just do that number divided by, that's fine. But if you do it all at once, make sure you put that whole thing in parentheses. You should get 3.75. So we're getting some pretty big z-scores here. So 3.75 is over here. That means we need to reject h sub 0. So that one we're rejecting, which means we think this one's true. So when I go to write step 5, I'm going to say there is enough evidence to support, oh, I didn't write a claim. So hopefully if you forget, once you start writing step 5, you'll remember to do the claim. So it doesn't say the word claim, and it's asking us if we conclude that men is longer than women. So that's going to be our claim. So there is enough evidence to support the claim that hospital stays are longer for men than women. Okay, so again, hopefully you can see how this is just like chapter 8. The only difference is your null hypothesis is now going to be mu1 equals mu2 rather than a number. That still, again, depends on what the wording is. Same thing with looking up your z-score. Calculating the z-score gets a little bit trickier. But then after that, it's all the same. One last one. So I think these are flip-flopped in your notes, but obviously that doesn't really make a difference. Okay, in a study of women science majors, the following data were obtained on 2 groups: those who left their profession within a few months after graduation, which are called leavers, and those who remained in their profession after they graduated, called the stayers. Test the claim that those who stayed had a higher grade point average than those who left. So here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Notice here they say those who stayed had higher than those who left. when you get to the chart, the levers are first and the stayers are second. So you need to decide which one you want to do. So here's what I would do personally. This is 1 and this is 2, just because that's how the order that it goes. So here's where you have to look. Those who stayed was higher than those who left. So mine is actually going to be a less than sign because I'm saying my levers are 1 and my stayers are 2. Most people would prefer to go in the order that it's in the wording, so theirs would actually be flipped. So I just wanted to do it both ways, or just kind of talk about it so you could see it. So it doesn't matter as long as you know what order you're putting yours in. Okay, and this one is the claim. Even though it's read kind of backwards, that's still the claim. Step 2, we're going to look at 0.05. So 0.05 in the big part of our table gives us negative 1.65. Our z-score is going to be 3.16 minus 3.28 over square root 0.52 squared over 103 plus 0.46 squared over 225. Okay, so again, you need parentheses here, and that should be it, sorry. And that gives us negative 2.01. So that's going to be over here, which means we're going to reject h sub 0. So we're rejecting this one, meaning we think this one's true. So there is enough evidence to support the claim. That the stayers had a higher GPA than the levers. And that should make a little bit more sense. That probably meant they were a little bit better at science, so they had a better time in their actual career afterwards. So most of these hopefully should make sense, not always, but hopefully you can kind of think about it and know whether they make sense or not. Okay. There will be some chapter 9 practice for you too, besides just doing the notes and the homework.